I'm Meteorologist Paul Deanno with your Western Washington Weather Webcast for February 3rd, and we are talking La Nina. So many of you have emailed us. Where's all the snow? You guaranteed us the worst winter in 55 years. Where's all the rain? Where's all the cold? La Nina is a bust. We're going to break those myths over the next 3 or 4 minutes. First, myth number 1, La Nina is not happening. La Nina is not the weather that is occurring here or elsewhere in the country. La Nina is specifically colder than normal water in the equatorial Pacific. Orange is warmer, blue is colder. Since about August, we have been well below normal, and look at September, October, November, December, January. La Nina is actually stronger right now than it was back in August and September when we were making all of these predictions for what was coming up this winter. You can check out all the different regions in the equatorial Pacific. They are all still colder than normal. So, fact number 1, La Nina is still happening. Now, to the interesting stuff. This is really cool stuff because this is typically, if you had to write up one map as to what typically, not always, but typically happens during a La Nina winter, this is what happens. A big blocking area of high pressure parks over the Gulf of Alaska. This does 2 things. It sends the polar jet stream way up to the north, grabbing all of this cold air in the Arctic, shoving it back down over the northwestern U.S. At the same time, there is a second jet stream that provides the moisture, because you need 2 things for snow. You need cold, you need moisture. That typically is pointed toward the Pacific Northwest, going under that blocking area of high pressure. And where these 2 meet up, and this is oh so critical, where they meet up, you've got the cold, you've got the moisture, you are going to have snow. This map shows what normally happens 70 or 80% of the time during La Nina. Forget that map. Myth number 2 is that this happens all the time. Not the case. Let me show you what has happened this year. Because the pattern is there, the location is different. This is the map right here. I know it's in different form, a little harder to understand. Basically, that is your bubble of high pressure right here. There's the Gulf of Alaska. It is way down to the south and much closer to western Washington. So rather than our winds coming down directly from Canada, our predominant wind flow has been out of the west or southwest, so we have not been as cold as a typical La Nina pattern. Here's the really interesting stuff, because remember we just talked about where those 2 meet up, you're going to get slammed. Well, you've gotten the tweets, you've seen on Facebook, snow in Texas, snow in Tennessee, snow in Georgia, huge snowstorms back east. That's because what's happening is around this ridge of high pressure, excuse me, all the cold air is now spilling down over the center of the U.S., over the Midwest, where it's unabated by any mountain ranges, to infiltrate the entire eastern 2/3 of the country. Now that storm track that was supposed to head toward us has been going under this area of high pressure, which is too far to the south, so now it's scooting down here, grabbing moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, and where that cold air is coming down from Canada, and the moist air is riding up from the Gulf of Mexico, bam, bullseye, eastern U.S., snowstorm after snowstorm after snowstorm. So what La Nina does is it splits those 2 jet streams. One goes and grabs the cold, the other goes and grabs the moisture. Here's the problem. It's not happening here. It's happening over here. So La Nina is absolutely happening, but for you snow lovers here in western Washington, it's just not happening where you want it. So the pattern is there, La Nina is there, it just is not impacting us like it typically does. And one final thing, I went back and looked to see just what exactly did I say, because we were talking about the strongest La Nina in 55 years. But I wanted to see if we actually said it was going to be the worst winter in 55 years. I pulled this from October 1st, where I wrote down some specific stuff during one of these webcasts. Higher than likely chance of wet fall, cold winter, and more snowfall. But I wrote not a guarantee, and listen to exactly what I said during this webcast. And La Nina is never a guarantee. These things which are very likely to happen, still 70 or 80% chance. There have been La Ninas in the past that were warmer than normal, and were drier than normal, and had less snow than normal. But more likely than not, the prediction, not the guarantee, is for a wet fall and a cold winter. Also, so absolutely that prediction so far has been wrong, but nobody ever said it was going to be a guarantee. Typically this pattern will happen where you have that meetup of the wet and the cold. Just it's not happening here this year. La Nina is here. It's just the the confluence of all of that stuff bringing the snow is a couple thousand miles off. So that's the latest on La Nina. One thing I want to show you before you wrap up the winter just yet, it is early February, a long way to go. Here's that La Nina pattern. Look at all that cold air on the eastern two-thirds of the country, and we can't shake this warm stuff. That is through Valentine's Day, or the day before, February 13th. Look at what happens. We get a little beyond that. That signature is gone. Now that high-pressure area does move a little bit farther away. Cold air does make it down here. Not only are we likely to be below normal temperature-wise by the middle of this month, but above normal precipitation-wise. Now, granted, that doesn't guarantee snow because we are in mid-February, and it does get harder to have everything come together for snow. But don't write off the La Nina pattern impacting us here in western Washington just yet. The bullseye is still the eastern two-thirds of the country, but this right here could still happen a time or two before this winter is finished. So that is the latest on La Nina. It's happening, but for the most part, it's just not happening here. I'm meteorologist Paul Deanno. Make it a great day.